Scoobity beep beep bop 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 bob and weave.
With Ron and Steve.
Oh,
Wow. We should have rehearsed that more. That was garbage.
could have been worse.
Yeah, no, you're right. I'm just self-deprecating, our own deprecating humor, I guess. Um, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right. I feel like I'm still coming back from being sick. I mean, I've been feel like I've been sick for 2 weeks.
Oh
It's been
yeah.
wild. Because it started off like just like a sore throat, and then it became like a sinus thing, and then it became like I was like deathly ill for 2 days, like couldn't even work, sleeping for 13 hours, and then I've been getting over it for a week and a half now. And if you can hear me, I still got like a little thing in my throat where it's just I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of sinus congestion. I have some, but like my throat's still bothered. And I'm just kind of like if it's not gone by tomorrow, I'm gonna go see a doctor because I'm gonna be at the doctor's office anyway. But I don't know what's going on.
Yikes. Well, I'm glad to hear your voice sounds a little better than when we spoke the other day. Sounds like you're
Yeah,
on
like
the up and up.
smooth jazz is what I do now.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you got the smooth jazz t-shirt on. That thing's styling, dude.
Nice. Yeah,
That's a
this is what Shinesty. You familiar with them?
no, Shinesty?
Oh, Shein, excuse me. Shinesty is I think where I get my underwear.
Ah.
Because Shein is like some overseas, like they got too much clothes and sweatshop, just send it over for $2. And so you can what Nicole does is she'll buy like $30 worth of clothes, which is like 15 things, and then we just kind of half of them work and half of them don't. And this is one like, but if you look at it closely, like this is very clearly two shirts they took apart and sewed together.
Yeah.
It's like,
I feel like
yeah, a lot of cool.
I feel like that would kind of like along the lines of like a tuxedo t-shirt, you know? Like I feel like you could throw that on under like black sport coat on Valentine's Day and just, you know, fly as anything else in the room. So,
Yeah, show up to a tech event with this and a blazer on and some high top Nikes.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. You got to have the Nikes to complete the outfit for sure.
Those are my favorite because we had a conference and like all the people that were like regulars, that's what they wore. They wore t-shirts and blazers and high top sneakers, and I was like, "What is going on? This is not Silicon Valley."
Yeah. It is wild, dude, to see like how like trends in business casual, you know, and like it's kind of interesting. Like the ladies wear has like gotten like more fly, and then dudes are just like you see a guy in a tuxedo with Jay-Z's in a tuxedo with Air Force Ones, and like that's the style now is to just rock you know the lace ups.
I mean, I fully support that over like going full tux, but
What'd you wear at your wedding? You had tux shoes on.
yeah. So I mean, I felt like it was appropriate. That's probably the most formal I should ever dress would be for my own wedding, correct?
Yeah, okay. I'll give you that.
That and my funeral. I will dress my whole life. Um,
So speaking of your wedding, you were kind of mentioning something about babies before we started recording. You just got my mind like racing, dude. I gotta hear.
Okay, so Nicole and I are not trying to get pregnant, but we're learning about getting pregnant and like all those things that go along with it. And it's just like the more I learn, the more I hate my middle school health teacher and like all the people that like helped bring us up. Because when you're growing up, you're like, you might sneeze in the wrong direction, and when you're alone with a girl and you're naked, and she might get pregnant. Like
Yeah,
that's how it felt when we were growing up. And I'm reading this book, and it's like, okay, well, you can only get pregnant during this time of the month, and you have to be doing the right kind of things. And sometimes it still doesn't work. And it's like, okay, well then maybe it's like it's more difficult to get pregnant than they allude to teenagers, which is probably just a parenting tactic. But I mean, my theory is I'd rather have the truth and say if I knew that it was just during this 4 day period of the month, and girls knew that, and they would know like absolutely do not have sex with me this week, then I think there'd be less teen pregnancies because they would know that this is when you can get pregnant. All the other times, it's not as likely or almost impossible.
yeah, yeah. And what you're kind of like alluding to right now is that truth and understanding, like or the facts versus safety. Like safe to be safer, technically you would just always wear, be protected, uh, but why not share that? Yes, you're right. Like the full truth, which is that period that is even more likely. It's not like it even has to be one or the other, but for some reason it has become that. When just the full story would be,
Could be
yeah.
both.
Most people aren't dumb. Most people would like understand all that.
Right, but I mean, it's not saying that it's impossible to get pregnant on accident.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, my son, looking back at a calendar, it was not during that 4 day period, you
Oh,
know?
really?
Yeah, from what I understand. I wasn't tracking anything, but just looking, there wasn't like there was a bunch of options to choose from either. It was like, oh, it was that date. And, so, it can happen outside of that too, regardless of, if you're 15 or 35. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of our friends, they have kids too, and I'll bring up dad with triplets just to shout out to him if he ever listens to this. But him and his wife,
I
he got off birth
learned.
control. Yeah, and then she got pregnant right away. And because they thought it was going to be difficult, so like, okay, it might take a couple of months. And it was like a month, and then all of a sudden she was pregnant, and then all of a sudden it was triplets. Uh, and so it was just kind of once I told my mom about it, and she's like, "Oh, well, did she just get off birth control?" Well, duh. Apparently, that's a thing. If you get pregnant right after getting off birth control, it's likely you're going to have multiples. Um, I think
Oh,
it's a myth
really?
still. There's no valid data to confirm that. Sorry, mom. If you find it, send it to me.
An old
I
mom's
haven't seen
tale.
it. Yeah, mom's too. Yeah, but yeah. So a lot of people, I'm hearing that from a lot of my other friends, where it's like they were expecting it to take a lot of time, and it didn't. Um, but then it's kind of like, okay, you must have been very intentional. Um, but all the books say it's this 4 day window. You're saying yours wasn't. Maybe it's or is the data wrong where it can be any time? I'm guessing it can't be the opposite time of the month as a 4 day window.
From this is going back 6 years now, plus. But so my memory might be a little fuzzy, but from what I understand, the 4 day window is when it's available, when the egg isn't available to be whatever. But
Fertilized.
yes, thank you. But if the also a term learned from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, if the deposit is before that window, the deposit can linger and hang out and
Right.
wait for that window. It's
The
just less,
sperm is going to live there for a little bit.
yes. So
I
it's
don't think
just
it's
less
that long.
likely. But
I would think it'd be, less than a week is what I would think.
yeah, that one's out of my purview of knowledge now. But I don't know the length of time. But I mean, well, let's think. I mean, the max it could be is 26, 27 days technically. Um,
Right.
so maybe it's like a week within that window is even, uh, you know,
You
so
have to have a deposit within those 4 days that's inside the body.
yeah, yeah. Even if it was deposited in advance.
Right.
Sorry,
Well,
mom.
we'll call it a premium. Making your premium payments.
Oh, Ms. T hates this. We should we should patch her in when we have these discussions to like to vouch for her
She would be
points.
red in the face, but
Oh, good old Miss T.
yeah,
But yeah,
that's what I wanted to cover. Basically, the difference between what the truth is and what I was told as a child, because I guess as a young adult, is I thought you could very easily accidentally get pregnant doing it one time, which I guess is true, but it's just unlikely. And if you know what the truth is and when the actual pregnancy window is, I feel like it would be much easier to avoid pregnancy if you knew those things.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's no. an argument from this side of the table that our education system, in many ways, leaves kids in the dark and leaves them hanging a little bit on actual valuable information, right? And for some reason, this is one of them. Do you think it's one of those things that's just been hanging on for so long from like, back in the day, back in the 50s or whatever, when value systems were a lot different and it was, more influenced by religions and stuff like that, that kind of infiltrated the curriculum, and it's just sort of residually hung there like that for so long.
Well, I think that, I think the old adage, like when we were kids, and I think it was kind of a new thing to have these sex ed classes when we were in school, is like the parents should be teaching their kids about these things. And it shouldn't be talked about at all at school. And then the schools went out and created some kind of formalized education for, sexual health. And I think we even had like a special teacher come in and teach us when we were in middle school because like none of the teachers wanted to do it. But now it's like, we're teaching kids about gender and sexual reproductive organs at a very young age, in organized settings and stuff like that. And the parents have no control. So I think that's kind of like the path of things. I think it used to be strictly taught at home. And now, like, I think those poor teachings kind of leak their ways into the early edges of school sex ed, but I don't know what they're teaching now. Maybe they're being more truthful and being more transparent, but I haven't been to a sex ed class in 20 years.
Yeah. The only thing I can remember about my sex ed class in high school was that I had it first period, and in second period, that class had a guest speaker to talk about a healthy diet. Jared Fogle himself.
No way.
No joke. He had a family member, niece or something that was in my grade at Brebeuf. Yeah, yeah. So I missed him. But that would have been a claim to fame.
This is the second time we've brought up Mr. Fogel on the pod.
Is it?
I think we talked about him a few weeks ago.
I probably told the same story. Hilarious. But yeah, he's for those of you guys who don't know, he's neither healthy nor a good role model for high school
More
kids.
educated in sex.
Yeah, more health. Subway does not make you fucking skinny, dude. You kidding me?
Well, I remember the story was the way he lost so much weight is that he ran an adult website out of his dorm, and he would walk downstairs and he'd eat a 6-inch sandwich for lunch and a 6-inch sandwich for dinner, and he did that for a year, and he lost a bunch of weight. But like, if you're doing that, you're eating 1,200 calories a day, which
Yeah.
is so low.
Yep. And I think he ate the veggie sandwich, so like no protein, no like any
Right.
fewer calories.
If you eat 1,200 calories a day, you will lose weight, but you will also lose almost all of your muscle mass.
Yep. Yep.
We talk, so we're talking about education. I think this actually parlays well into our next topic, which I know nothing about, and I think you know a little bit about. So I discovered something, it was probably on TikTok, about Montessori, which I'll give you kind of the high level of what I think it is and the, two web pages I looked at. It was really a different way to have very early childhood development and teachings, where it's much more of something you kind of brought up before, where it's not an authoritative method where there's a teacher and the teacher tells the student what to do, but you treat the student with respect, and you give them the responsibility of decision making, and you kind of let them guide themselves onto figuring out what they want to learn about, and then let them learn in that fashion. And Montessori is become these organized schools that people go to where they put their kids in Montessori's, and I heard crazy things where like reading at a fourth grade level at age 5, stuff like that, or they're doing long division at age 3, which is just ridiculous to think of. But I also heard that there's a bunch of uber wealthy like people in there that are like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, like they went to Montessori's, or the ones that didn't, they sent their kids to Montessori's, those kind of things. And so what do you know about Montessori, and what does it mean? And yeah, tell me what you know.
Yeah, you got it. So as everybody knows, I own a preschool called Strive Academy, and we call ourselves, not officially, like it's not on our website or anything, but when people ask, we will say we're Montessori adjacent. or Montessori like. But Montessori is actually the last name of a Dr. Maria Montessori. She was alive in Italy, and I want to say the early 1900s, and she started a school, named it after herself, a Montessori, the Montessori school, and they kind of pioneered this teaching style, and more than a teaching style, it's also an environment. So when she first created it, was a lot different than it is today, but those core values are all the same still. In order to be called a Montessori school, you actually have to get certified, and get a certification from the in the U.S. It's the American Montessori Society. There are some schools that aren't certified, but they still call themselves Montessori schools. I don't know how they get away with that, but so just if your listeners are looking at a Montessori school, ask them or look on their website to see if they have that certification, to see if they're legit. And if they don't have their certification, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing either. It might mean that they do one or two things a little different, and or because of where they are or what their constraints are, maybe they aren't able to offer a fifth day of school a week or something So it could be something like that. That's kind of holding them back from getting that certification, but they have everything else. So not a deal breaker, but just saying. Hey, can you mute? You got some background noise. Sweet. Okay, so anyway, the in addition to like the teaching method, like you said, where you're like giving the kids just space to learn on their own, the environment is also like huge. So they don't have a ton of toys, number one. They don't have action figure like plastic toys like dollhouse type stuff, and big plastic castles and giant trucks and stuff like that. In their toy selection is minimalish, or probably even minimalist. But you see a lot of wooden toys. You see a lot of toys geared with like shapes. So, fitting the triangle in the triangle hole of the wooden box. You see a lot of like puzzle type things, and then like arts and crafts. They do a lot of like drawing and things like that. And then on their playground, they have typically they'll have instead of like a bunch of stuff out there, they'll have an area for basketball, and there's like a little basketball hoop with like two balls, and they're clean, and like always put away. And then on the other side, they'll have a playground that's like a very basic jungle gym. It's not like a crazy swing set with plastic everywhere and the tic-tac-toe thing you slap. Like it's just wooden or metal, just basic. And they usually will have like garden boxes where they plant their own veggies too. So it's kind of like homeschooling with a minimalist approach to it. And this is kind of a sidebar, but all that minimalism plays a huge, it impacts greatly the environment, because studies show, there was a big study done in 2017 out of the University of Toledo about toy quantity and child happiness. And with too much, with excess toys, the kids actually have stress. They don't gain the ability to be patient, as well as kids who have fewer toys. And kids with fewer toys have more fun because they're utilizing their imagination, right? They're playing with fewer toys for longer. Whereas if you have a ton of toys, the kids are constantly, oh, it's an action figure. Da, 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 da. Some kid tries to snatch it because I'm excited, so I lose interest and go play with another toy. And there's like a lot of kind of bounce, pinballing. But when there's fewer toys, kids learn to play together. They structure their play a little bit. They create games. They get imaginative. And obviously you can see why later in life that would be a huge benefit to have learned how to do that when you're 3, because then you can do things like Jeff Bezos turning nothing into something, right? Um, so with all that said, we're starting to see a lot of schools, even not Montessori ones, start to go towards that, whether they're saying so or not. We're seeing, the trends in toys are, kind of like the Scandinavian furniture that's in style right now. That very simple, clean lines, a lot of natural colored woods. So toys are kind of following that aesthetic right now. There's more options for those. Like even at Target, So, at Strive, when we say we're Montessori adjacent, the things that we're doing are fewer toys. We're copying the Montessori schools that we've gone and looked at, where the toy shelves, instead of just being crammed with all kinds of crazy toys, a zillion colors, it's like the blue blocks are on this shelf, the purple blocks are on this shelf. There's a little picture on that shelf of the blue blocks so that the kids know to put them there. At lunchtime, the kids aren't just served. They wait in line and they get their food. They take it to their seat. When they're done eating, they put them in the dish rack, right? And they wipe their table. When they get themselves water, we have like a carafe for water that's like mini size for kid size. So we've got 2.5-year-olds that, since we put the water station out 3 weeks ago, have learned to pour their own water. So when they learn how to do these things, these life skills, so early, they're at a huge advantage, because what we're going to see is our 2-year-olds that are learning these little things now, as they age to 3, 4, 5, by the time they're 5, they're going to be able to pour their own water, put their dishes away, serve themselves, tie their own shoes, and fold their own clothes, and clean up after themselves, and not just be able to clean up after themselves, but have the habit of doing that, and therefore have a sense of pride in their work and in their environment, which obviously has very positive impact on a kid's life, or as an adult who just has those habits ingrained in themselves. So that's sort of the 5-minute spiel on what Montessori is. And, it's not hard for all daycares to implement some or several of those impactful attributes of their services. We're seeing that parents who are we've been doing a ton of marketing in the last 2 weeks to get our name out there, because we're enrolling and growing and hiring and all that. And their number one feedback from parents, sure, they love that we painted the space and that we replaced a lot of the old furniture, but what they love is the minimalism. They love that their kids are going to learn to do real life skills, and most importantly, the organic whole foods, which is also a Montessori value. They all do that. But we're the only school that's not Montessori that does that in the whole city. So those 3 things have been our feedback, our key feedback for
Montessori schools are like much more expensive.
Yes,
So since you're not like licensed, you're like the more affordable Montessori option.
exactly. And the Montessori schools, not only are they expensive, but they keep a very low student teacher ratio, so the wait lists are always long, and they typically don't have favorable hours for working parents. They're typically 9 a.m. to like 3 p.m. And, and a lot of them are even closed on Fridays in addition to those short hours. So even with the one closest to us, the only one that's actually certified in Boise is Monday through Thursday from, I think it's 9:30 to 2:30. And it's only Monday through Thursday, and they're like $350 a week. And, and they don't do infants. So, it's, that's not practical for most people, except for like stay-at-home parents who are in a certain income
If you
demographic.
stay at home, you don't really need daycare.
Yeah, agreed. We see a lot of people that stay-at-home parents that are bringing their kids in 1 to 3 days a week. That we have a lot of people that are 2 days a week because they work on, they work from home or they have like an eBay business or whatever. They're all moms that have like their own thing and they do it all day long, even when their kids are home. And they just want like 2 days a week to have like full, quiet.
Yeah, get some work done. That's interesting. Well, thank you for sharing. So Montessori sounds pretty cool. I mean, I definitely want to try and dig into it more and learn some details about it. But I did see that there's in Orange County, obviously, there's a bunch of Montessori schools.
Yeah.
There's, a whole academy that's got like 8 different locations around here. And it seems like a really good option for teaching your kid like basic life skills that I think, like the way I kind of think about it is teach them how to take care of themselves very early so they can focus on other things, when they get into schooling age or even before then. Because I know a lot of kids when they go to college, like I know for me, one of the biggest things is like, okay, I have to fully take care of myself now and I have to figure things out. It sounds like Montessori takes care of those things before they're even in school, let alone college. And so it'd be a much easier transition for them to adulthood if they have these habits at a very young age. Maybe some parents need some Montessori teachings.
Yeah,
That would help
for real.
adults.
Yeah, and Montessori schools, I've been talking about it in the context of preschool, but they do have Montessori elementary schools as well. And yeah, and they do home ec and or what we called home ec when we were in high school. They learn how to cook, how to grill, how to, cut meat, like all kinds of stuff that we never learned. And yeah, you get to college and you're like, what is a chuck steak versus a ribeye? What is, like they learn
Oh no.
how to shop. They learn all kinds of stuff that's practical for real life, and they can read at a higher level than kids in their grade in public school. So
Yeah, so how does that kind of work in terms of, you talked about a lot of things about, pouring your own water and having the blocks and organization and taking care of yourself. How does that kind of parlay into, reading at a higher level or doing math beyond their age? How do you think that works?
you mean just in terms of like how that organization and minimalism like correlates with that outcome?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know the science behind that fully, but it's kind of similar to the toys and imagination correlation, right? Or causation. So with fewer distractions, with fewer stress and anxiety looming from all around you, with the piles and piles and stacks of toys and stuff, it leaves room for the brain to focus. So the calm, like if you think about like if your desk is super messy and you got 10 things you got to do, but you don't have time to organize your desk, and then it's harder to do those 10 things, right? But like say if your desk was like perfectly clean, dusted, everything, and it you just had your 10 things laid out in order of priority and nice and clean stacked, it probably would give you the headspace to be able to perform better. So, in that analogy, it's the same with kids, right? That it kind of opens up their brain for that space.
Do you know about Marie Kondo?
Yes, big fan.
Okay.
Just
Yeah,
bought
I
two
think.
books of hers actually.
Oh, really?
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, I think it was probably 3 or 4 years ago, I read her book and kind of flipped a lot of things in my life upside down and started cleaning things up. And I think it helped. I think it made me more organized and, made me feel, more pride in my everyday life. So sounds like Montessori is kind of a similar idea than what Marie Kondo does.
Yeah. Have you read the book by Vicki Robbins? It's called Your Money or Your Life.
No.
It's kind of like the Marie Kondo uh, version of, but like for finances, for personal finances. It's really interesting. Its premise is about having too much stuff and consumerism, but thinking about it rather than does this item bring me joy? It's more focused on how much life energy did this item cost me. So you kind of like, if you get paid $10 an hour and you work for 40 hours a week, and then, but it takes you an hour to drive there and an hour to drive back, You calculate kind of everything, including like what clothes did you buy for work that you wouldn't have bought if you weren't working there, right? And you like add up all those costs throughout the year and then divide it by like the actual time spent. And you realize my $10 per hour job is actually, I only take home after taxes $2.15 per actual hour. So if you buy something for $2.15, that actually costs you one life hour. Um, and it really helps you slim down on your crap, on how much you spend at the store.
Yeah, and that's interesting. Me and my dad were just talking about he's thinking about new technologies, and my recommendation to him was pick the technology that is going to provide more automation. I don't care if it's 200 times the price as the one that has a lot of manual stuff. If it's going to save you an hour, it's worth it. If it's going to save you an hour every day forever, 100% do it. And so it sounds like that's kind of on the same thing, but I'll definitely add it to my reading list once I'm done with my baby book.
Yeah, that's a good one. And then uh, whenever you guys get pregnant, I'm going to send you a baby book that was like the end all be all for me. It's called 12 Hours Sleep in 12 Weeks. It's how you
Told me
cope.
about this, and I
Yeah.
sent it to like three other people.
Oh, dude. And I'll send it to you. That'll be my gift to you. Every
All right.
time a good friend announces that, I just Amazon it to them. It's Oh man, dude, getting the baby to sleep by 3 months old is just like it'll save your marriage, it'll save your brain sanity, everything, dude.
And that's honestly the number one thing that I'm concerned about with having a baby in the house is I am a miserable human being if I don't get my 8 hours of sleep. And so if we can figure out a way to get me 8 hours of sleep while there's a baby here, whatever it is, I'll do it.
Yeah, dude. And this will get me canceled and I don't care, but that book is amazing too for guys because um the only reason the baby wakes up those first 3 months is because it needs to eat and you're trying to like wean it off of eating in the middle of the night. So mom has to wake up anyway for the first 3 months. So if you can get the baby sleeping through the night, 3 months, then you never have to wake up in the middle of the night. So it's really a book for guys, for dads. But it also limits the time that moms have, but they still got to get up a few times for the first 12 weeks. But in California, it sounds like she'll have her what's it called? Not FAFSA. What's it called? Where moms get like 12 weeks off, paid
Oh,
leave. FMLA.
maternity. Sure. Whatever it is. And I know they're pretty lenient at where she works
Hmm.
because it's a healthcare institution, one of the top ones in Orange County. So they understand the needs of new mothers. And so I'd want to say that one of her coworkers I want to say it was between 3 and 6 months. It was a long time. It might have been like 2 months before and 2 months after.
Hmm. Yeah, it's pretty wild. FMLA is nationwide, but it just basically I think it covers an extra four. I think it's 4 weeks. But California gives another 12 or 8 on top of that. Other states don't do that.
Interesting.
So yeah, so California is one of the best places to have a baby, and not only does the mom get her 12 weeks with FMLA and California's benefits, but the dad gets an additional, I want to say it's 2 of paternity leave paid from, and then California gives it as well. So I
Does that
think
work if you're self-employed or full commission?
I think so. I think you just qualify on your last couple of tax filings for how much they actually pay you out, and it's like 70 or 80% of that, whatever it is. But I mean, it's a benefit that's silly not to take because you you know you've been paying the tax on it for
Yeah.
years.
All right. Well, it wouldn't be a true episode of ours if we didn't talk something about money. So
Yes.
I wanted to bring up because I'm looking at stocks and investments and different types of, ways to diversify. And you had some interesting thoughts in saying, this is why you got into real estate because you were looking at different types of investments and decided that was the best one. Um, I'll talk about stocks a little bit from what my standpoint is, and I have a little bit advice of having a financial advisor in the family. Um, But I think, picking individual stocks and hoping they go up and trying to do that is just so much harder than anybody portrays it to be. And it truly is gambling as well. It is the same thing as placing bets on the Knicks. Like you're just doing it on, Microsoft or Tesla, whatever it is. There is a little bit, there's a risk adjustment to it because it's very low chance that your money is going to go to zero if you buy a company in a stock versus if you're doing sports betting. But it's still a risk whether you're going to gain money or lose money. And, even if you're really, really smart, it's still pretty much 50-50 that whether it's going to go up or down, and you have to know when to sell, when to buy. And there's different layers to it, options trading, and all those different things that go into it. So I think that buying individual stocks, unless you're like 100% committed on learning how to do it, it's gambling. And that's why I do a lot of more mutual fund things, like my retirement accounts are in mutual funds, and somebody else takes care of it. And they have a portfolio that they invested this fund into, and it's got 15 or 20 different companies, and I kind of decide my risk tolerance and go from it on there. But I think one other thing that I really would like to figure out is copycat trading. I don't want
Mhm.
to copy somebody in Congress like Nancy, because she's a prolific trader. She knows how to finagle away around the insider trading stuff, and she has one of the best returns of anybody in the country on their individual investments. And so if there's ways that I can like log into something and say, okay, I want you to copy the portfolio of Nancy Pelosi because they're a government official, their portfolio has to be public. Um, but I haven't figured that out. I would love to do that because if they're cheating, I want to cheat too.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why everyone doesn't do that. Honestly, there must be a reason why everyone's not doing that. Is there a delay in like when she has to announce what she bought?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's my biggest question. Because if it's a 6 month delay, then you're probably missing out. But if she has to claim what trade she's making within 24 hours, I mean, then that's huge. Then there's no reason to invest in real estate or anything else because she never loses. A lot of those people never, I mean, even Dan Crenshaw, the like clean cut Republican, is like 150% a year. I mean, no one's doing that anywhere else.
So I heard that there's a theory that Nancy's not doing it herself. She has an account in her husband's name and he's
Mhm.
doing it. So she'll basically make a call and say, "Hey, I think I like this stock." And then he'll do it. So that's a way to kind of loophole around it. But I mean, probably not a phone call type thing. It's really, you get home and you talk about it and there it is. But that's something I want to look into because I've got, a little bit of money in stocks, not a whole lot. Just because when the benefit of doing that is that your money is relatively liquid. And so I can sell the stocks and get the money in my checking account within a week. Whereas if you have a mutual fund, you have to go through different processes and sometimes it takes longer. So that's the only benefit of it. But speaking of things not being liquid, how did you come to the opinion that real estate was how you wanted to invest your money versus, putting something in the stock market or a mutual fund or something else?
Yeah, well, exactly. You hit the nail on the head at the beginning when you said picking single stocks. I've lost about $3,500 doing that 3 times. So a total of like $3,500 on 3 bets, and most of those were like cheaper stocks, and like mostly Robinhood type stuff. But even with the news and stuff, GameStop. I lost money on GameStop, dude. I thought it was going to keep going up, and it just plummeted. But yeah, so that happened, and I also like cashed out my 401k after working at a company for about 5, 6 years, and I had paid about 28 grand into this 401k over that period, and the value of that 401k was about 19,000 when I left that company, and the company I was going to didn't offer 401k, so it rolled into an IRA, and then I was like, I'm gonna try to pay off my credit cards and try to buy a house soon. So that was kind of around that time when and we I don't know, it was maybe a year before I bought that house with you.
So you
Um,
took the penalty from
mhm.
I guess it was then your IRA and just took the cash.
Yeah, Yeah, I just took the penalty. I was paying more interest on my credit cards at the time than and I was losing money in the 401k that was in like a mutual, like a safe. It was one of those Vanguard where you can select your level of risk tolerance, and I had it on low, and I still somehow um, it just never bounced back after like that one drop in like 2012, 2013 or 14 or something like that. There was a drop one day. And but yeah, man, I just realized this isn't working out. I have no control over it, and that's all my savings. I'd rather put it in real estate that I can force value. So I'm really into, as you know, I'll buy a house that is okay, decent price, good bones, fix it up, and then refi, get my money back, and or maybe and then some. I did one, two flip wholesale deals, but in terms of not just income, but like building the wealth and savings and nest egg, it's mostly been in that, and I can control it. So um, I, there's no way that a house is going to go down in value over the next 15 years like my 401k did over the course of 6. So you know, you can get the average rate of return on a 401k or a mutual fund is what, 7% overall over the last, since it's been tracked since 1930 or whatever. But real estate is way higher than that. And that's if you do nothing to it. So,
Well, I think that the average appreciation, it definitely depends on where you live. If you do nothing to it, I think it's around 5%. But the biggest difference is that, say, if I buy $10,000 of stock in Apple and Apple goes up, 6%, I make 6% on my $10,000.
mhm,
If I put $10,000 down on a $100,000 house, I'm buying $100,000 worth of value. And if that goes up, I get $6,000 on that $100,000 house. So like your leverage is the biggest difference on that. So like the actual percentage amount is not better on houses, but the amount that you owe and your leverage percentage, that's what really makes the biggest difference. And if you're forcing appreciation like you're saying you're doing, that's when you can really get, like 10, 15, 20% gains depending on what you're doing to the house.
mhm. Exactly. Exactly.
And I think the other portion of that we haven't really touched on yet is the forced savings aspect, because it buying a house is definitely more expensive than renting a house. The monthly payment is going to be higher, but with that you have a forced savings account. So every month you make a payment, a percentage of that goes directly towards your principal, which is basically like going into an investment account. You're buying more of that house every time. When you're doing for rent, you're not paying it all. If you really did take the like for like, how much your mortgage payment would be versus what rent would be, and then the difference between what rent is and your mortgage payment, you took 100% of that difference and put it into like a savings account or something, yeah, you're going to do a lot better in the savings account for a certain period of time. But no one has the discipline to do that. They're all going to say, "Oh, I need the money for this. I've got a trip I got to take. I need a little bit less money into my savings this year." But when you're paying a mortgage, it's a forced savings. You're going to do it every single month for the entire time you buy the house. And so with that forced savings, it causes not just the appreciation, but your balance goes down and you earn equity that way.
Mhm.
Um, the biggest thing that's a downfall with real estate is the liquidity. You mentioned the Burr method where you're buying, rehabbing, refinancing, renting. But with that, the only time you get access to the money is through the refinance. And refinances are not free. They are not always easy. Sometimes it's very difficult to qualify for them. So that's the biggest downfall, is that your money gets stuck in that house. And unless you have a clear exit strategy, where it's going to work, it might be stuck in there until you sell it. And what I always tell my clients and what I'm trying to convince them of is, you shouldn't be putting 20% down if you're okay with a payment at 10% down or 3% down, because your money's not coming back out very easily from that. The only reason you should put more money down is if you know for a fact that you cannot afford a higher payment. Other than that, you should be limiting how much money you're sinking into the property, and using that. You could take that money and put it in a different investment, or go buy another house, whatever that is, and or maybe supplement your payment. If you're not okay with the payment, it's $100 higher than you need, put less money in, have that savings that drips $100 a month until it runs out, which case you're likely going to refinance and get a lower payment over time. You might drop off MI, something like that. But that's something I'm always encouraging my clients to do, is to put less money into it, just because it's so difficult to get your money back out.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. The leverage portion, exactly. Yeah, that guy you like, that you really like on Instagram, Thatch Nguyen, he talks about that. He's like, why would you go buy a $200,000 house in Tennessee in cash and make 400, $500 cash flow on it, when you could get a loan, and with that $200,000 you could buy 10 of them that all have
Right.
$500 cash flow, you know?
Well, they wouldn't be.
So
Instead of being $500 cash flow, you'd probably have 10 $200 cash flows, something like that.
yeah, something like that. But it
So
would,
you'd double your monthly income with the same amount of cash.
yeah, exactly.
Or that would be 4 times in your monthly income.
Yep. The cash on cash return on each property is much higher than if you buy one for 200,000 and you make, after all expenses, 1,200 bucks a month off it. I mean, that's not a great, that's a 1%, no, 0.5% cash, no, something like that. 5% cash on cash return, but you can get a 10% cash on cash return on 10 of them instead with that same money. So,
One other thing that's a benefit of real estate as an investment is that a lot of it is a tax deduction.
mhm.
So, there's a whole schedule in real estate. If you have rental properties where you can deduct property insurance, you can deduct property taxes, you can deduct depreciation, HOA dues, all that stuff if you're an investor, and even for your primary residence. The interest and property taxes that you pay on that is going to be a deduction on your income. So if you make a decent amount of money, you can think of that as like a 20% discount on your mortgage interest and taxes each year. And there's not a whole lot of investments that I know of that can do that. And there's also ways to kind of take advantage of the capital gains that you get from selling it. I know there's like a 5-year rule here in California. Well, people will buy a house, and once it gets to about $500,000 and it's been 5 years, they'll sell the house to avoid the capital gains tax and reinvest it in a different one. So they're not paying tax on the appreciation gain. And so I fully agree with you that real estate is probably, the number one investment people need to try and get into. But I mean, I'm not all the way in like you are, where I still have investments other places, because I want to have my money more liquid and available to me, and I haven't sunk all the way in. And I think it's going to be a little bit diversified, even though I think that real estate should be a big part of everybody's portfolio.
Yeah. And I should probably clarify too that I also want to be as diversified as possible. But at the moment in my journey of that financial freedom, right, is being fully diversified and no market impact, no market issues can impact you because you're so diversified. That's where I want to be. But my vehicle to get there is to force that value in real estate first. So I'm not going to get there. I don't feel like I'm going to get there through a mutual fund only, right? So we've got a business that we've diversified outside of real estate a little bit. We've got a couple rentals, and we're diversifying into a business here with the Strive Academy. So as those grow, ultimately, yes, the next one would be other businesses potentially, or going into some type of super safe index fund or something.
You're pretty diversified within real estate too, because you've got
Yes.
an Airbnb. Don't you have a long-term rental and then like a construction project? So
Yeah.
you've got a lot of different things going on just within real estate. So as long
Good
as
point.
the market doesn't completely crash, you're probably going to be okay.
Good point. Yeah.
All right.
Good
Well,
deal,
this was a
man.
good session. It's good talking to you.
You too, brother.
Same time next week.
Yeah. I'll be on time next week.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, man.
See
you later. Yeah.
Love you, Mom.
Love you.
Bye.
Love you, Miss T. See ya.